Donald Trump announced at a rally held at a United States steel facility in Pennsylvania that he plans to double the country's steel import tariffs to 50%. This declaration came during a celebration of a deal between United States Steel and Japan's Nippon Steel, and marks a major extension of the 25% tariff he had already imposed. On May 30th, 2025, Trump addressed a cheering crowd, stating that the steel tariffs would jump from 25% to 50%. We're going from 25% to 50%. No one's going to get around it, he emphasized. This escalation is set to further rattle North American trade, which is already on edge. Following his speech, Trump confirmed via social media that the 50% tariff would also apply to imported aluminum. These changes are slated to go into effect on June 4th. The announcement has hit Canada especially hard, as it's one of the world's leading steel and aluminum exporters, and the United States is its biggest customer. Canada's reaction has been fierce. In what might be its boldest retaliatory signal so far, it has hinted at redirecting or cutting off $1.3 billion worth of oil exports. How did a steel tariff dispute escalate into a showdown over oil? Let's unpack the latest developments and what they mean going forward. Be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video to stay updated on our future content. In Alberta, Canada's industrial heartland, the anger is palpable. Factory workers and engineers are furious. Prime Minister Carney's administration described Trump's 50% tariffs as a direct attack on Canadian jobs. This move significantly disadvantages Canada in a trade worth over $35 billion annually. Despite lobbying for 2 years to ease United States trade restrictions, this announcement wipes out those efforts. Data shows Canadian steel and aluminum exports to the United States total around $35 billion per year. With the new tariffs, much of that trade risks becoming economically unsustainable. The once strong but delicate economic bond between the two nations is now facing real strain. Trump argues that if Canada profits too much, it should pay a price. But Canada sees this as a betrayal of close economic ties. Even the previous 25 to 30% tariffs were tough. Now at 50%, the impact could be catastrophic. Canada may have a strong counter-oil. As the world's fourth largest crude oil exporter, Canada ships about 4 million barrels per day to the United States, valued at around $103 billion annually. U.S. refineries, especially in the Midwest and West Coast, are heavily reliant on Canadian heavy crude, oil that's really tough to substitute. Prime Minister Carney has long mentioned this dependency as potential leverage, even though cutting oil exports has always been seen as a last resort. But now, tensions have spiked. Canada may feel it has no choice. The message, if you slap us with 50% tariffs, we might cut our oil supply, is gaining traction. Analysts say that even a partial reduction could shake the U.S. supply chain. Some U.S. refineries could, in theory, turn to the Middle East or Venezuela, but sanctions and political risks make those options uncertain. If Canada acts, Americans could feel the pinch at the pump pretty quickly. The U.S. chemical and petrochemical sectors could also face shortages. Some view Canada's oil threat as very real, while others believe it's just too risky for Canada, which earns most of its oil revenue from the United States. That said, Canada has been actively working to diversify. Projects like the Trans Mountain Pipeline have boosted capacity, aiming to sell oil to Asia via the Pacific. By 2024, Trans Mountain's expanded capacity reached nearly 890,000 barrels per day. Last year, around 200,000 barrels per day were sold to Asian buyers, compared to almost zero 5 years earlier. Still, the transition isn't complete. Infrastructure, tariffs, maritime contracts, and market logistics all require time. Canada can't yet reroute all 4 million barrels per day, but they could apply pressure through quotas or partial restrictions. If Canada cuts oil, will the United States hit back harder, maybe raising tariffs to 80% or even 100%? Or will Washington back off? There's really no clear answer. Trump's decisions can be unpredictable, but facing rising gas prices just before an election is a risk he may not want to take. A headline like "Gas hits $5" could be political poison. Canada ranks 3rd globally in aluminum production and 14th in steel. A prolonged standoff risks triggering a full-blown trade war, with economic pain on both sides. Ultimately, it's a high-stakes game of brinkmanship, and the next moves could reshape North American trade for years to come. Canada has long been a dependable supplier to United States industry. Many American construction and automotive companies rely heavily on Canadian metals. Until now, this supply chain seemed rock solid, but with a 50% tariff in play, that deep-rooted link is on the verge of being severed. As a result, Canada's talk of cutting off oil supplies could throw the United States metals sector into chaos. What once was a stable, mutually beneficial relationship is quickly morphing into a lose-lose standoff. Canadian steel producers aren't mincing words. Our industry could collapse. But they also remind everyone, United States refineries still rely on Canadian crude. The unspoken message, if you try to choke us, we'll cut off your oxygen. Some voices on both sides suggest this might just be temporary posturing, a short-term dispute that will soon pass. But the numbers paint a stark picture. Trump is slapping a 50% tariff on $35 billion worth of steel and aluminum, while Canada is signaling it might play its $13 billion oil trump card. If Canada's LNG and Trans Mountain export routes continue to expand, the nation's dependency on a single customer, the United States, will shrink. That shift could flip the power dynamic. Yet it's not that simple. Experts in Canada are raising tough questions. Can we really afford to stop selling oil to the United States? It's a steady source of income. Losing it could shake the economy, especially in Alberta, where job losses could be severe. Some say we won't cut it, we can't. But inside political circles and the media, there's a growing belief Ottawa is at least trying to send a strong signal to Trump, even if it's just a bluff. The phrase being tossed around, Trump loves to gamble. Let's see who blinks first. The economic impact is already showing. Energy stocks are fluctuating. Shares in United States refineries are experiencing increased volatility. If Canadian crude supply is throttled, analysts warn even the WTI benchmark price could rise. A tighter supply would push up the cost of refined fuels like diesel and gasoline. Some say Texas pipelines might be a fallback, but closing off the northern supply would still create a major logistics headache. So how will this showdown end? There are, rumors swirling about a potential summit between US and Canadian leaders to ease the tensions. But Trump has really dug in, saying, we either win or we lose, about the tariffs. Meanwhile, Canada seems to have lost patience, declaring, we've trusted you for too long. It's time we protected our own interests. Is this all just for show? Maybe. But observers caution against underestimating the resolve of the Carney administration. Yes, Canada is deeply tied to the US market, but it's also, actively shifting toward Asian buyers via LNG and Trans Mountain. The idea that America isn't our only customer is gaining traction. At the same time, US industries face potential shockwaves. The 50% tariff might backfire politically, triggering public anger over rising prices and supply chain disruptions. The question on many minds, why are we even in a trade war with Canada? In the end, both sides might need to sit down and rebuild what's been damaged. In the meantime, ordinary people are stuck in the middle, Canadian workers, American refinery staff, and consumers footing the bill for geopolitical uncertainty. Trump's aggressive move to double tariffs is being met with Canada's warning that $13 billion in oil exports could be slashed. It's a high-stakes game to see who blinks first. Canada's steel and aluminum industries, already struggling under previous tariffs, believe they now hold a powerful weapon, their oil. A full cutoff would hurt both sides, but sometimes in trade wars, logic gets left behind. This escalating conflict highlights the risks of over-relying on a single export market. That's why Canada is pushing into Asia with renewed urgency, developing its energy infrastructure to avoid being boxed in by United States policy. For the United States, the mere idea of losing Canadian oil is alarming. It could mean higher fuel prices, snarled supply chains, and economic ripple effects. In the end, the consumer pays more. Everyone hopes cooler heads prevail. No one wants to spiral into a tit-for-tat of cut oil, ban steel, stop aluminum. Maybe Canada's oil threat is just a chess move, a powerful bluff, but the consequences are very real. When nations go all in, the ties of global trade can snap fast. Today's 50% tariff and Canada's hint of oil retaliation are a warning shot. Only time will tell whether Trump will reconsider, whether Canada will act, or if a last-minute diplomatic breakthrough can stop this from boiling over. The coming weeks will reveal whether the fragile friendship between Canada and the United States can survive this economic pressure. So what do you think about this dramatic standoff? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell, and stay tuned for more breaking stories like this.